What you're looking at is the brain of John Wayne Gacy, which was removed during an autopsy after Gacy was executed in the early morning hours of May 10th, 1994. But for this story, we go back to the late 1970s, to Cook County Jail, and to this room, and to a young Cook County Sheriff's officer named Bob Fitzgerald.
I was 21 years old. I just started my career. It was my first year on the job. John Gacy's bed was in that corner.
Twice a week, Fitzgerald was assigned to guard Gacy. They played cards and dominoes, and they talked.
John was kind of a egomaniac. He was gloating about the parties, the 4th of July parties that he would attend and dress up as a clown. He talked about his house being dug up by the sheriff's police.
33 young men and boys died at the hands of Gacy. 27 bodies were carried from the basement of his house in Norwood Park Township.
I believe that he knew what he was doing.
But why? That was a question without an answer.
One of his defenses was that he blacked out when he drank, and he admitted being a big drinker.
In November 1979, Gacy's defense team set out to try to determine if alcohol caused him to kill.
And he put his arm around me and says, "Come on, Fitz, we're going to go drinking."
John Wayne Gacy was taken to an empty courtroom to get drunk.
They asked him what he drank, and he says, "I drink Jingle Bells, J&B, straight on the rocks."
Over the next hour and 15 minutes, with wires attached to his head and connected to an EEG machine, Gacy's brain was observed as he began to drink.
I remember probably a little more than half a bottle of J&B.
He was definitely drunk?
Yes, he was.
Afterwards, Fitzgerald said Gacy, with a cigar in his mouth, walked back to his cell.
He was handcuffed in the front, and he just collapsed on the floor. And he was laying on the floor with the cigar smashed in his face.
Back in his cell at the county medical unit, Fitzgerald said Gacy became violent.
He became very angry. He took a swing at a correctional officer, and we had to put him in full restraints.
There was no clinical change in the function of his brain.
Bill Kunkel prosecuted Gacy.
Gacy was interested in power. He was interested in the power of life and death and making that decision.
According to Kunkel, the experiment was not a secret because it had briefly been discussed in open court.
The purpose of the test was to see if the alcohol caused any change in his brain waves.
But Fitzgerald said, to his knowledge, it's a story that never made the news, even as the nation was riveted to Gacy's crime.
It was kind of kept hush-hush here at the jail.
15 years since the execution of John Wayne Gacy, and comes the question, do we understand the mind of a serial killer any better now than we did then?
We know there's a genetic component.
Psychiatrist Helen Morrison, who took possession of Gacy's brain and has conducted experiments on it, says little is known, even now, about the minds of serial killers.
We know that it's something in the electrical system that is acted on by hormones in the brain when adolescence begins, and that's as far as we've gotten.
With this exception, alcohol did not fuel Gacy's actions.
He was probably the only prisoner in Cook County Jail that can get drunk legally.
John Gacy ever say to you, "I'd like to do that test again"?
He was arrogant. He just